Good evening, everybody. Hope everybody's well this evening. I'm in the shop today to do some work on my Vickers. And I talked about in the explanation video about some pretty horrific home gunsmithing marks. I also wanted to clarify a few things. It's been a long time since I actually dug this rifle out, and the only reason I brought it out is A, because it's really rare, and B, because it's one of the candidates for apertures because it's just such a weird rifle. I thought it'd be fun. But anyway, I mentioned in the video that this was not an original sight. What I meant was, I should clarify because it's been so long, this is an original sight, a BSA Model 19. And I said in the video it was windage adjustable. I was mistaken. Actually what it is it has a post and like a circle that's interchangeable by a lever on the side. So you flip the lever and it goes up and down. So I don't know what I was thinking exactly. What originally the problem on this rifle was is somebody, I believe, opened up the dovetail for something else. And then when I purchased this rifle, this sight, even though it was original, no longer fit in the dovetail. And somebody JB welded it on top or super glued it or something. There was a gigantic blob of glue on it. So I did my best to massage it back, and it actually is the original sight, which is great. So that's something I wanted to clarify. The downside is that this dovetail has been so heavily butchered that I had to do some creative work just to get the sight in there and stable. Okay, so the work beforehand is just savage, and there's some, very clear marks, and they are, for the most part, unrepairable, meaning that whatever you do to them is going to be obviously a repair. And so I'm here today to attempt to clean some of these up now, and show you guys how I do it, because this rifle is so special and so unusual. There's absolutely nothing I want to do that would alter it or significantly change its appearance. But because it's already had this done to it, I don't know if you can see the scratch right there. It's awful. And so to me, it just looks terrible. So we're going to start the process of making it look better, basically, and trying to improve its looks a little bit. And so I'll take you through how I do that. Now, typically a process like this takes some time. So I'll start the stages for you today, and you can kind of see. And by no means am I wanting to re-blue this or alter it. All I want to do, because the bluing on this gun is so nice, and to be honest with you, it's actually easier when the bluing is nice than if it's a brown patina, because brown patina just comes from age. It's, those guys spend years trying to fake that patina and get experts on it. And, what I'm trying to do in this situation is these scratches are all in the white, meaning they're bare, shiny metal, and they contrast greatly against the blue. They also leave the metal open for corrosion, like true rust, and so that's another reason. So, trying to match the blue is out of the question. All we're trying to do is clean up those scratches and gouges just a little bit, and make them more presentable on the end of this rifle, because right now they're fairly obvious, and they bother me. If that makes sense. They don't bother me from the point of view that I'm upset I'm upset for the rifle, I should say. So I just wanted to take you through a couple of things, processes, and how I do this. And like I said, I'm not gonna take you through all the multiple steps of this. This might take me a few evenings, but I'll kind of give you an idea on how I go about this, and it's kind of from experience. So I'm sure lots of people have different ways. Mine is kind of what I like to say is a little bit gentle of an approach, although some of these require a little bit more aggressive technique than I normally would do. But anyway, you just need some super basic tools. So I've talked about it a little bit before that I use a lot of Ballistol, and one of my favorite kind of cold blue kits is they call it quick browning. That's what they call the bluing kit. And these are available, and they come with a multi-oil which you'll need to apply after you blue because of the rust process. You get a jar of their bluing solution, they call it browning, some gloves, a polishing cloth, which I've never used, and a degreaser, which I've actually never used. But you need a kit like this. You can use whatever you guys like. I like these guys. I like their browning, their bluing solution quite a bit. Also, I'm just used to it. I've used it so much. I find the components high quality, and it's always consistent. So I use these guys a lot for little things like this. Now, I'm not a firm believer in completely cold bluing or browning a complete rifle. The results are terrible. Wears, it's uneven, and like you can, and I have got good results, but it's like I'd rather leave a rifle brown or plum or something like that than try to reblue it, because it just doesn't last. I should have showed you guys yesterday, but in my Inch at 64, the center portion of the barrel when I got it, because of course, like everything else I buy used, the center portion of the barrel had been grabbed many times and put away with handprints on it, probably damp handprints, and so there was quite a pitted section, not severe, minor, that I had to clean up and blend the blue in. And you can't really notice, obviously, until I point it out, but there was a section that I fixed. So anyway, so this requires a little bit more technique than that, because it's not a broad area that you can kind of blend in. These are legitimate scratches into the white, so that's a little bit different contrasting against the blue. And I want to explain that like this. Got a piece of wood here, so let's pretend this is your steel, for example. And yes, I know it's not round and it's not barrel or whatever, but when you take something sharp that's scratched and you go like that, you got a scratch like that. Okay, so the scratch will have edges. Okay, now if you have something that has an edge, you have a multi-faceted surface to reflect light. And so you'll see it much worse when it's a scratch versus if it's like a gouge like that. So if you have something like that in wood or metal, what looks worse to you? Well, of course, the scratch does. But technically, they're about the same damage. The gouge is actually worse because it's usually a rounder surface and takes more surface area, I mean, from the point of view. And if you cross-section them, they probably would be the same depth. Only one is more visually worse to your eye than the other. And so this is what I have, and this is like what we'd want to accomplish. And then on top of that, we were trying to blend in the color. So these are the differences between scratches. A gouge, which you normally would get in like a wood stock, and a scratch and a gouge, sorry, a scratch and a wood stock. So the principles are the same, only we're applying it to metal. So this is what I'm dealing with, and this is like what we'd like to get to. Now, I could just take these scratches, put a cold blue over, and Bob's your uncle, and it would look that much better. But what we're going to try and do is reduce the edges of this scratch to be more like this, to blend into the surrounding area. It's a little bit tricky. But anyway, that's kind of my description on what we're after. So you need a couple of supplies. You need some fine grit sandpaper. I'm choosing 1500 grit because I like to work with that. You need something that makes little cutouts of sandpaper, but you can do it with scissors. I have one of these funky leather hole punches that works for me. Scissors. I have a sharpening stone. This is like my shop stone. What we're actually going to use this for is to actually dull up the sandpaper so it doesn't have such sharp 1500 grit. Now you could say, well, you could use 2500 grit. You have to use almost used sandpaper in my experience. So you could use finer and finer, but even if it was new 2500 grit, I would still recommend that you roughed it up. It cuts too fast. You need some little containers for your blue. You don't want to just dip your brush in the blue container, you'll contaminate it. And then you need some cheap brushes in various sizes. And like, these are from my local dollar store and they're awful, but doesn't matter. And then of course you need some pencils, because this is your sanding surface. Nice flexible, nice soft, precise. And then you need a glue gun. And yes, that's a tiny glue gun. It's the only one I could find in my shop. Anyway, so I'll just show you guys really quick. What I do is I just cut a section, or a piece rather, of sandpaper. And like, it doesn't matter what it looks like. And then you choose a size of your hole puncher, you cut it, whatever you need to do. And these aren't precise because they're meant for leather, so sometimes I have to go at them a couple of times. from a couple different angles to get them to go all the way through. But you get the idea. They form kind of a circle like that. See that? Takes a couple of times. All right, there we go. There we go, right there. Okay. And so then you just basically take this little fella. You take your glue gun, and I'm just going to choose this one at random, but you put a little dop of glue on the end, and like you just want to get it coated. Put your sandpaper upside down, and then it should look like that. Okay. Okay. So then we got a nice sanding disc. And then like sometimes it pops off, like right there. You just do it again until you get some adhesion on it. Sometimes, actually I'll try this one because sometimes the rubber gives you trouble for adhesion. I'm like, don't panic. It happens sometimes. All right, that one's better. So like sometimes, I don't know if this, oh, it's a good pencil, but excuse me, anyway, sometimes that happens. So you got it on the end of your pencil. And like I've chucked some of these in a drill before and turned them down even and it's finer, but you know, we don't need to do that. And then you just take off some of the sandpaper, and like it's counterintuitive, but you can kind of feel it where it almost becomes like a buffing surface. Okay? And that's important for what we're about to do. And then you pick an area that's particularly sharp, and like I always go from worst to best. So I've got like a nasty scratch here and a pretty significant gouge there. So I'm going to go after this gouge here for you guys. So if you see that, that's what we're dealing with. Okay. And it's a little bit hard for me to do this on camera, so some I might not, but basically what you do is you blend the edge of the scratch. And like, I don't know if you can hear how quiet that is. You just check it with your finger. And you're going to see this like circular, do whatever you got to do. You can kind of feel it through the pencil. And then you can see the edges around the scratch getting lighter. And that's what you want. You want to raise up some bare steel. And then you can check in. Like I can see, you guys probably couldn't, but I can see there's a change in the grit. You just work it a couple of times. I'll go up and I'll hit this one. This one's the worst because it's like a really nasty scratch. Okay, so I don't know if you can see that there, but can you see the contrast around the scratch where there's kind of like, instead of being blue, there's like a gray area? That's what you're after. And then you, excuse me, progressively use less and less pressure. We're just trying to take off some of the harshness of that crack and like, scratch. And of course it looks much different to me in person. Okay, there's actually some divots in there. I think somebody maybe hit it with something. It's hard to tell, but what we're doing is very minor. And like at the same time, if there's like corrosion in there, this will help clean it up. And I stress, like I'm not after rebluing this. All I'm after is blending that white out, the metal I mean. Okay, and so the results are very, very, very minor. I don't know if it'll show up on camera, but we're after just to blend that. And so like my motion is up and down with the groove to cut the edges of that scratch. And then I kind of release the pressure a little bit around it to it's almost like I'm thinning the blue around. Okay? And then there we're getting a little bit where I wanted it to be. Okay, so the cool thing about cold blue is what I'll show you right now is like, we're at a point now here where like I wouldn't really be done, but let's see what happens when we kind of like apply blue, like what the change looks like, so you guys get a sense of what things are happening. So the key to a good blue is a clean surface, and like by no means this is the final stage. I'll just show you guys what I'm talking about here. So you can use like an alcohol, or one of my favorite things to use is electrical contact cleaner. I've had good results with that. Like acetone works too, but you got to be really careful sometimes with the finish on some guns. So in order for it to work, you got to make sure it's super clean. So you want to clean all around the area as best you can, because the thing about what we're going to do is we're not getting in there very much with sandpaper, or we're not like getting crazy around the actual area. It's very minor what we're doing. Okay, so you get your little clean cup here. And like I said, you want to be really careful not to ever dip your brush in this, because essentially you'll contaminate it. And like I pour out like a really small amount, because that's 10 times more than you need for this sort of thing. Like if you were bluing a firearm, you'd probably go through the whole bottle, but I'd really try not to do that. And then like leave your glue gun plugged in. Mine is still plugged in because you don't know if you're gonna have to make more discs or whatever. And we're gonna pick this ugly fella right here, okay? And then like get in there and get some nice sharp scissors and trim off the dead wood. Get you're aiming for a very small profile surface, okay? And like that's why you buy them from the dollar store. Super, they don't have to be perfect, but you're aiming for a very, very, get rid of the stragglers, you know, make a kind of a little brush tip there. You get it in there, and this is where the magic happens. You see that? Super small amount on the end of the brush, okay? And then you find your area that you're working with, and you just super lightly follow the contour of the scratch. Now, right away, it's going to fix your scratch, meaning that it's going to take it from white to blue. And the secret here is, okay, you can see how it's changed it right away. The secret here is counterintuitive, is you want to get it off, but if you rub it, it'll affect the rest of your blue. So you just dab it like that. You see how the colors changed? Now, everybody does this differently. This is how I do it. Okay? Do you see what's happened there? Do you see what's happened? They've essentially disappeared. Now, they're not blended, we're not done, but the white's gone. So yes, I know they're there, but once we're done polishing, that's the difference. Okay, so we blended that out. I'm looking at it here. I'm actually not too sad about that. I'm gonna get a little bit more here, and then we're gonna go kind of this way. And I don't know if you can pick that up, but the crack itself is picking up more blue than the rest. We'll do this gouge here. Same with the gouge. You don't want to wait too long, but I'll show you guys. See how that's kind of highlighted? See, there you go. There's a good angle. You can see where the gouge is. So again, you want to come in, you want to sit for a second, not too long, and you can see it kind of changing color in front of me. We dab it, and we blend it. Okay? And now it's widened a little bit. Okay? So you can kind of see it there. Now, I'm not gonna lie. In a lot of cases, I would just leave that, because the white is gone, there's blue in it, you know, it looks 10 times better. But this is gonna take me a couple of times, mainly because I really like this rifle, so I wanted to do it kind of right to show you guys. But the key is here, it's something that, listen, you can't screw this up at this point. It's already a damaged firearm, so we're just trying to make it look less obvious. We're gonna blue it, we're gonna protect that scratch, we're gonna get it waxed, we're gonna get it oiled, whatever. Okay, so So now the blue is basically, I would say, 50% blended to my liking, and I can see the scratch in there, but that's fine. We reduce the edges a little bit with the sandpaper, and you can do it as much as you want, depending on what you like. And then the more progressively you do this, the less and less that scratch will pick it up. And as you come down, we're going a little bit out more and more. Like we wipe down the whole area, so this is where we start to blend. And then you can see it little by little, the more coats you do, the less and less that scratch will pick up. And we let it sit, and I can see the whole area changing color, and that's what you want. Okay? So, like, they're still there, obviously. I'm not trying to say I'm hiding them, but you see how the white is gone and they're blended in? Okay, so you can still see that scratch there, but it's hidden. Like, it's not in the white, is what I mean. And then once you get, like, hear me out here. I can't stress enough that there is a scratch there, but it looks like it's a scratch within the blue instead of in the white, which is the goal of this exercise. I don't want to blend that in so it disappears, because then I'm removing metal and original blue. I don't want to do that. I want to soften the edges a little bit with my eraser method and make it so it kind of is less obvious. Okay? There's like a really long, nasty, it looks like, I bet you anything somebody either dragged their sandpaper on it or a file or something like that. Right on the top. On the other side, we got some good dings. And then, like, you see at the crown there, where it's coming in out of the case and just rubbed, like, you can also do that area and make it just vanish. And, like, a lot of people like that area, so, like, don't get me wrong, I'm just telling you what you can do. You can absolutely blend it. The problem is if you start doing stuff like up here, because it's supposed to be plain, so there reaches a point where you're removing a wear from a 100-year-old rifle that you don't want to do. It'll knock everything over. Okay, so we're going to come back over to this side here. And same kind of principle. And like if you feel that your eraser method is not enough grit, and you're like, oh, well, 1500 is enough, this is what I would tell you. Rub longer. Have some patience. And then if you're still unhappy, cut a new piece and don't kill the grit on the whetstone as much as before. And some of these are actually, like, I think from site work from a long time ago, because they have rust in them now. But some of these are recent. And I think actually what somebody did was they probably put on a site that would accept interchangeable inserts, which I would prefer. And then they had to widen the slot to fit it because, you know, back in the day there wasn't as many choices, or, you know, maybe they lived in a country where, like in Canada, we get a lot of UK imports, right? Being a pretty significant British colony, right? So we get a lot of stuff like this. So probably, you know, they don't have a lot of the US availability, like Lyman and stuff like that. They'll have like Parker Hale, and so they might have had to open this up for something that they had on hand, which is totally fine because, you know, target rifles, that's like that. So, you know, if I was using, like, let's say a 400 grit on this and I was doing this, I would be right through to the metal. But as a result, you saw me all that rubbing, and I'm barely through the blue. It's just a little bit silver in the area we're trying to work on. And that's important because, like, this is not a fast process. So you're tempted to, you're like, oh, you know, like, I'll go crazy on this and then I'll get it all done tonight. But sometimes the best way to do it is to hit the area, get it all done, sit on overnight, look at it tomorrow morning with fresh eyes. You know what I mean? And then say, okay, well, I think I want to do a little bit more. And, like, by all means, wear gloves. I think I'm so used to doing, like, normally I'm a glove wearer, but I've always used my fingers for this. I just kind of prefer it. And, like, I really trust Ballistol. It's good stuff. Food safe and all that. So, not to say the bluing is, of course, but their products are are specifically made for that. And like you see how little I'm using here. You just want to blend it. And there is absolutely, got some dirt in there. There's absolutely nothing wrong with, I know I've seen some of those bluing pens. Somebody sent me a link of those a while ago, and I've never tried one. I used to use like, you know, whatever it was. I don't remember the brand, sorry, it was like a coal blue, the gels, and I think it's Outers maybe. I don't know if that's a Canadian thing, but, and they're not good. Whereas I find this company, Ballistol Quick Browning, is good. And like, I'm patting each time because there's a system, but you don't always have to do that depending on the area. Like, because the thing about this is if you don't like it, a little steel wool and a little bit of aggressiveness tomorrow, you can get it right off. It'll give up the ghost because it's a cold blue, right? So, like I said, the goal here is to blend that in as much as we can so we're out of the white. That's what we want to do. Okay? So, like I'm relatively satisfied with tonight's session of just like killing that white there. You know what I mean? So, this area here you can see is lighter because this was pretty nasty with the, and so this might take like several coats. So we'll just put this on here because it's quite, I had to blend it quite a bit. Now you can, I don't know if you guys can see the scratch there still, but the surface around I have to blend a little bit. So we're just going to let this sit a little bit longer. And like, it pays sometimes to let it dry as per the instructions and then steel wool it after. Like there's all sorts of little tricks you can do, but like, it's excuse me, it's nothing to be afraid of because it's not a permanent thing, cold blue. It's something you have to maintain. It's not like a, well, not that hot blue is a regular long lasting thing. So I'll just sop up the edges a little bit and then we'll, there you go. And so you're getting darker there. You're getting more consistent on the end here. I don't know if you guys can make that out, but as we let it sit a little bit longer rather than patting it and blending it out. So you're going to get like some spots and some modeling that you can all buff out later, like with any cold blue. Okay? And then like, really happy with that because it right away looks better. Like I know it's there, but quick glance, it looks way better. And there's some JB Weld on here from the previous gunsmithing attempt that I have to remove separately. But I left that on there because I'll have to steel wool this after and blend it in, and that'll help get rid of that. JB Weld's a tough thing to get rid of, and so sometimes the best course of action is just very, very light pressure with some brass scrapers or something like that. So there's a little good nick down here. There's several nicks all over the barrel, and like this is a good method to just touch those up. They don't hurt anything. You're just cold blue touching it. If you're ultra conservative about it, they're not going to detract from its value because you're doing something very minor. And if you're concerned about it, skip this step. Like seriously, if you're concerned about doing anything like that, don't do it. Just apply cold blue over the top. Just in the little paintbrush there, it's not gonna. And like we're talking about, like if it's original scratch, it's not going to be in the white, right? Like you know, obviously don't attempt this on some sort of heirloom level firearm. I'm only trying to fix Bubba's gunsmith. I'm not gunsmithing methods. I'm not trying to do anything else other than that. That's important, I think, to say because you can very easily go a little bit crazy with this. Okay. And like you just use it to follow the actual white. And like, I think we've all bought firearms, especially if you like older ones. We've all bought firearms that have had somebody try and hide things on us, right? This is most certainly not what I'm trying to do. Because, well, for one thing, I'm not selling this firearm. And for the second thing is, I think I always take the persuasion that, or the point of view that I owe it to this firearm to keep it in good shape. Because like I'm not somebody who is shooting some tactical something or other, you know, you get into these rifles with a certain element of understanding that you're preserving something, right? Like you like the whole experience of this gun. It's not just about shooting holes in a target. So I just ran there, and you want to get that right away because it'll make a trail underneath the barrel. So I just noticed this, because I'm doing this for you on camera, so I'm noticing some light spots that I missed around the dovetail, because this was pretty hacked out. And so, like I said, like, it's up to me to try and preserve this as best I can. All right. So again, we're going side to side here, back and forth, and like just getting rid of the white. You can see this is a lot larger area than I started because I'm blending it just a little bit around the sides. Okay. All right. Okay. So, yeah, there's lots of work left to do for sure. But white's gone. Okay, so set that there, and you can see what I'm left with. Barely used any, but this is because I dipped a couple of times. That's trash, so it's no good anymore. Now the step to do here is, after it dries, what you should do absolutely is get a corrosion inhibitor on that, such as like a Ballistol or something that, or a 30 weight, nothing with the detergent. So not just a straight motor oil, not just a WD-40, you want to use something with no detergent. So like I use this in my shop a lot, and it's just a 30 weight. Usually like a air compressor oil is a good choice, as long as it's non-detergent. And so normally what you do is you just get it on your finger, and with Ballistol it's safe. You get it on there, and ignore the JB Weld, of course. But you get the corrosion inhibitors on there. Okay. And then you, I don't know if you can hear that air raid siren in the background. That's my local volunteer fire department. I live in a small town, about 8,000 people, and we rely on a volunteer fire department. So that's their call to an emergency. I don't know if you picked it up or not, but anyway. So, white, gone. You do that a couple of times, and the scratches are still there, but the white goes. So that little scratch on top, it's still there, but it's being blended in with very little, like 1500 grit with the grit cut down on a pencil eraser just to soften the edges and clean up the steel. And I could go way more in there, but I'm not gonna, because that's too far. Somebody's already done that damage. I'm not trying to do any more. I'm just trying to keep it safe, not from corrosion, and keep it looking a little bit better. But anyway, that's step one, and I would probably do this 2 or 3 more times, depending how it would go, and I would blend larger and larger areas until I'm happy with it. But that's not too bad. It turned out pretty good. Probably because this is really nice steel. Old steel, right? Old steel always blues better, in my opinion. Anyway, I hope this helps you guys, and if you have any questions, let me know. If not, again, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.